Well, so that is slashes. We're not stating or specifying any specific environment in which, you know, a certain sound can be affected. Whereas in narrow transcription, we are including more details that will, I would say, represent the actual way of making the sound. Like in this case, for example, sign and sight in broad transcription, they are exactly the same segment. However, in narrow transcription, we start specifying that the I, the diphthong in sign, is different from the diphthong in sight. And the reason is because the N, as we said before, influences the previous sound, in this case, the diphthong. So here is an example. I'm sorry, it's, you know, it's not so clear, but anyways. So cop, right? Cop. So in phonetic representation, or in this case, broad transcription, that's what, let's call it phonetic representation, but you all know it's phonemic representation. We will transcribe the word like this: individual segments next to each other until you make the word cop, right? On the other side, we have phonological representation. In other words, you know, phonetic representation, which is including the details. Now you see that the k sound in cop changes a little bit, and now you see this little H. This is a sign for aspiration that occurs when the k sound is in this environment. Okay.
Profe,
Yes.
Profe, that sound belong to phonology, not for phonetics, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, when we start including or introducing something else, like more details, in addition to just phonemes, then we're talking about phonology, because now we are including, or we are taking into account, the possible environments that can affect the sound. So in this case, cop, the k is affected because of the position in the word. So there is an environment. Now we're talking about phonology. Okay. I think you all know that we already talked about the difference between broad and narrow transcription. Okay. Now let's talk about phonological rule, which was the topic for reading this week, right? So what is a phonological rule? It's simply a formal way of expressing a systematic phonological and morphophonological process or diachronic sound change in language. So in other words, it's just formality, okay? You have an environment that affects a certain sound. There must be a way for you to state that formally enough to make a new rule in case you are a linguist and you are studying a new language. There must be certain pattern that you need to follow, okay? So linguists agreed upon this one, which is basically, you know, this is the affected sound. This arrow here means it becomes this, okay? And this slash, this big slash here, is read as in the environment of, okay, or when. And then here is the environment. Okay, this is the specific environment where this phenomenon happens. So this is the phenomenon. The stop, in this case, is a stop, a consonant sound. Okay, alveolar consonant sound. In this case, the t and the becomes flap when or in the environment of, right? And then here, we will see that in more detail, so don't worry about it. I'm just explaining the picture. Here in between, right? So we have a plus vowel plus stress, which means it's a stress vowel, and then plus vowel minus stress, which is an unstressed vowel. So when the T and the D occurs between a stressed vowel and unstressed vowel, that's the environment. Okay, so it means this line here, this dash here, or let's say underscore here, means that this is the position where it occurs. We will see that in more details. Okay, don't worry about it. So this is just an example of how to represent a phonological rule in notation. In this case, that's what we call it. Okay, in notation. So the phonological rules that exist in English are these, basically, right? So we have aspiration, vowel nasalization, or organic nasal, and so on, right? So I think most of you already, I would say, already read about this week, or most of you are already familiar with some of these rules, okay? But obviously, I will explain each of them on the board, and then also obviously I will share both the information and the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, hold on. Let me just sorry. Hold on. Let me just stop sharing for a while, and then I will be explaining each of these rules, or each of these environments, right? So all the rules mean a different environment where this thing will, or this affectation will occur. Okay, so let's see. The first rule is aspiration. When does aspiration occur? Anybody can tell me?
It's about breathing, Professor, breathing.
Kind of. Yes. It's more about exhale air when you. It's like a puff of air when you pronounce certain sounds. So the first thing you need to think about is which sounds are affected by aspiration.
I got the rule here, Professor. I can read it for you.
Okay, go ahead.
It says voiceless stops become aspirated when stress and syllable initial.
Okay, good. Voiceless stops are simply these sounds. Okay? These three sounds are the sounds affected. That means the voiceless stops become aspirated. That means they are pronounced with certain puff of air, right? So that's, I don't know if you have seen, or if you have done it with your students, that you put like a sheet of paper in front of their mouth, and then ask them to pronounce certain words, like for example pie, and then see how the sheet of paper moves. Okay, it's the same. T, k, and p get affected in a specific environment. What is the environment? There are two environments, guys. You have to be careful. There are two environments. Number one, word initially. Okay? Or syllable initially. However, if it is syllable initially, it has to be before stress vowel. Okay? It has to be before stress vowel. If it is not stress vowel, then you're not going to aspirate the consonant sound. Okay? I will give you two examples, right? Let me first specify the symbol. Okay, the symbol that you will write for aspiration is a little H next and on top to the sound affected. In this case, any of this. Let me give you an example of word initial. Word initial, I can say, for example, tip. Okay, tip. In broad transcription, no problems, right? You know how to transcribe it. Just like in the just like in the workshop. Tip. However, including the details, the sound, since it is word initial, gets aspirated. Okay? Tip. So now we have this example. Tip. It is aspirated because it is word initial. However, the other environment that we studied says that it is also aspirated in syllable initially or syllable initial position when occurs before the stress vowel. Let me give you an example. Okay, port, right? Port. The stress is right here, right? Remember we studied this, right? This symbol means that the next syllable is stressed. So the stress is here. The syllable starts with a voiceless sound. It's a voiceless, with a voiceless stop, which means the pronunciation. I'm not going to include the other details, okay? I'm just going to include the aspiration so you can see it. I will use the same example later for explaining other things that might happen here, okay? But so far, this is the only thing that we care about at this moment, right? So important. So port comes with aspiration right here. Because it is syllable initially, and this syllable is stressed. Okay? So that is the first rule. It happens with all these three sounds. It could be T, K, or P. As soon as they occur in that environment. Example: occur. Okay, occur. Cur. It is a stressed syllable that k will be aspirated. Okay.
Excuse me, Professor. You said that is syllable initial, right? That example.
This is syllable initial. Yes. If you divide it, then you will get the first syllable, second syllable, and third syllable. So this is the most stressed syllable in the word. Okay, that's the first rule. As I said, I am just showing how to represent or how to see them graphically, because you already read about them, but maybe you didn't get the theory, exactly the theory behind it. So that is the first rule. The second rule is vowel nasalization. You already know that, so I don't think I have to explain it. But let's use this same word here to explain vowel nasalization. Every vowel, without any distinction, okay? Every vowel. You know what? Let me write the details in red so you can see them. Okay, every vowel that occurs before a nasal sound gets nasalized. So in this case, we have two vowel sounds occurring before nasal sounds. So both vowel sounds get nasalized.
Profe, may you repeat this rule, please?
Yes, please.
The nasalization rule? Yes,
Yes.
every vowel sound that occurs before a nasal sound gets nasalized. It doesn't matter which vowel it is, it doesn't matter which nasal sound it is. It could be the velar sound, it could be the alveolar sound. Any nasal will influence the vowel sound like this. So here nasal and here nasal too. Okay, just give me a second. I will go get another red marker because this one is kind of like out of ink.
Nada, can you repeat the rule, please? Because I didn't get it.
Every vowel sound after a nasal sound will be nasalized.
Repeat, please.
Every vowel sound after a nasal sound will be nasalized.
Before a nasal sound.
Is after or before, Professor?
Before a nasal. Yeah. Every vowel sound.
Before.
Okay. Before a nasal sound will get nasalized. Okay. That is the nasalization rule. Okay. The following rule is, I mean, that one doesn't have any representation. I will just talk about it, and you will see maybe some explanation as for something that happens also in Spanish, right? It is called homorganic nasal rule.
Hold on a second, Professor. What is example of the nasalization? The one you have there important?
Yes, right? Okay. Here we have two examples. The graphic representation for nasalization is this on top of the vowel sound. Okay, just put it on top of the vowel and then immediately it becomes nasalized. Here you can have many more examples as long as the example has, for example, like a vowel before a nasal. Obviously, if it is the other way around, the nasal before the vowel does not get nasalized. So if I say, for example, the word nun, well, not nun because nun. Let me get another. Not, okay.
Nun the movie. Nun the movie.
let's say not. Here the vowel doesn't get nasalized because it is occurring after the nasal, not before the nasal. So this one is not nasalized. So the pronunciation will be just like that. Okay. Okay, so the homorganic nasal rule does not have any graphic representation. So when you transcribe the words, you will not have to pay attention to this so much. But this is also a phonological rule, so I'm going to explain it to you. You know that in Spanish, for example, right, there is this spelling rule that says that before p and b, before b and p, you always write m, right? Like, for example, well, say importante. Here you cannot write an n, never, right? But then before v, you can write an n, right? In Spanish, you say, for example, enviar. You don't say m, right, with m here. However, guys, since Spanish does not have the V sound, okay, this V sound is pronounced B as a bilabial one, right? Then we tend to pronounce this. Okay? How do you pronounce enviar? With M or with N?
With N.
You pronounce it with N as in...
Enviar.
In Spanish,
Yes.
mean, Professor?
Enviar.
It sounds
Yo
with
envío.
M.
Okay.
When you close the sounds together, they sounds like M.
Like the second one.
Yes. Yes, if you well, obviously, if I ask you to just pronounce the enviar, you will be paying attention to the N and V. But if you put it in a sentence like, oh, tengo que enviar una, right, tengo que enviar una encomienda. Okay, enviar, immediately your head will switch N for M.
Yes.
Because the next sound is bilabial.
Mm-hmm.
Even though in spelling it is not bilabial. But in pronunciation, it is bilabial. So this bilabial sound will change the nasal. So homorganic rule is something that applies or that affects nasal sounds. Okay, nasal sounds have this ability or this characteristic of taking on, any, or let's say taking on the place of articulation of the next consonant. That is what happens with the velar nasal. The velar nasal is an example of homorganic rule in English. However, it has a different representation. It has its own symbol. But the reason why, the reason why this N is not pronounced N is because of the homorganic rule. The next consonant sound is velar, so it makes the N change from alveolar to velar. So the pronunciation of this will be this. This is an example of homorganic rule. Okay, the next consonant changes the place of articulation of the previous nasal. In English, we have this example also. Okay, you don't really say input, you say input, right, with M. So the pronunciation would be this. Even though the spelling is with N, the pronunciation changes into M, input, because of the next sound. If you say, for example, I live in Panama, and you say it fast, some people tend to change the in for im. I live in Panama, okay? In Panama, because Panama starts with a bilabial sound. So the nasal sounds have that characteristic, okay? However, as I said, you don't need to represent it. It is just for you to pay attention and take a look at, those sounds that might probably sound different when when put in some context. Okay, so that is why in Spanish it happens very frequently. That is the third rule of the list. The other rule is vowel length. Remember, I told you the first class that a long vowel and a tense vowel are actually not the same, right? A tense vowel is a vowel that comes out with a lot of tension in the muscles, whereas a long vowel has a totally different environment. So the rule, well, let's write the symbol. The symbol for vowel length is this column right here. It is placed after the vowel. That happens in words like British English. Remember, in the morning I said the word party, right? Party or potty. So when you drop the R, you make the vowel longer by placing this column after it. In that case, well, that is because you drop the R, but in regular cases, it happens in two environments. The first environment is before a voiced sound. Okay, voiced sounds make the vowel a little longer. That is the difference between, for example, bed and bed. Okay, bed, like the place where you sleep on, bed, and then you say bet, which is just putting some money for something, right? So that is basically the difference. And the other environment is in final position. So every time you have a vowel sound in final position, it becomes longer. Okay? Because it has nothing else after it. So it doesn't, it is, I mean, the sound of that vowel sound is not cut off by any other sound because it is simply at the end. For example, she, we, they, okay, all of those vowel sounds are longer than if they occur, for example, like C, and instead of C, I say sit, right? The vowel sound gets shorter in middle position. So word finally, I can say, for example, she, okay? Or let's say C. Right? C instead of sit, which is shorter, right? And then also before a voiced sound, I can say, for example, is. Okay? The reason why the vowel becomes longer here is because the voicing of the next consonant makes the voicing of the first vowel longer. So it kind of like gets attached together. Yes.
Professor, yeah, I was going to ask about the second environment. It needs to be a voice fricative, or it can be any voice consonant?
Any voiced consonant. I can say, for example, instead of saying is, I can say ill, okay? And we simply switch this for this. Any consonant as long as it is a voiced consonant will apply. Any other questions? Well, taking that into account and coming back to the previous example that we were using before, right? Important. We have now another thing to add in this word, right? Let me make some space right here. Okay. So we have 3 vowel sounds, right? These 3 vowel sounds occur before consonant sounds. So the first thing you need to see is if the next consonant sound is voiced or voiceless. So in this case, all the nasal sounds are voiced, always, okay? All the nasal sounds are voiced, which means here, vowel length, here, vowel length. There is another consonant sound here, followed by okay? The liquids are also always voiced, which means here, vowel length as well. Okay, any questions? Okay, good. So that is another rule of vowel length. Obviously, guys, you will have the theory, so don't worry about it. I'm just showing how it works. You will have the theory, so you can apply each of the rules to different words. Okay, so we have now velarization of L. L has certain velar characteristics when it occurs in this environment. By the way, this is the graphic representation of the velarized O. So we have the L, right? And then in the middle of the L, we have a little horizontal line right in the middle, okay? That is velarized O. So it happens in the following environments. Let me, you know what, I will write the, hold on, where did I put, oh, it's right here. I will write this example later to show you another thing that happens in this word. Okay. So the velarized L occurs in the following environment. Okay. The velarized O occurs before any of these consonant sounds. That is one of the environments, okay? Before a low or a back vowel sound. So I would say, for example, lack, okay? This sound is included in the environment, so you simply velarize it. Okay? Lack. The same would be with lock, like closing the door with the key, right? Lock. We say, for example, low, okay? Low. We say loop, okay, with the U. All of those will be velarized. What happens in the velarized or the velarization of L is that your tongue curls towards the back when pronouncing the O before these sounds, making the L, kind of like make some contact with the soft palate or the velum in this part. So the L goes to the back. And the other environment is in final position. Okay? In final position. Final position as an example, the word final, right? Final. So final would be like this. Obviously, here we already saw the nasalization stuff. So nasalized, vowel length. Again, vowel length, because the L is voiced. And then the L in final position, velarized. Now we have a totally complete transcription. Okay? So again, the two environments before any of these sounds, as you can see, not the A, not the E, not the schwa, even though some people think that schwa can be here. If you can see the schwa here, then you can velarize. Some other people say it is central vowel, like mid-central, so it's okay. So don't worry about the schwa. But before these sounds, always velar. And then at the end of the word, always velar. It means it sounds velar, right? So say final, and then it goes towards the back. It sounds different as if you say, for example, liter, right? Liter, or something like that. It sounds different. Any questions? Okay, good. There are many rules, guys. The only way for you to memorize these rules or apply or know how to apply the rules is by transcribing sounds and words. Okay, so once you get used to transcribing, adding some details, you don't have to think about the rule because you already know the rule by heart. Okay, it's just applying. The next rule is fricative R. You know what fricative is, right? Fricative is basically a sound that comes out with certain degree of friction. Well, the R can come out with some degree of friction based on the previous sound. So the symbol to represent the fricative is this. Okay, is the R with the line in between. I mean, in the middle, right? It's right there. So that is fricative The environment for the fricative is when it occurs after ta, okay, after the, and after th. Always the R after these three sounds comes out with certain friction. So I would say, for example, try, right? You hear like sh, like a friction when it comes out, like try, dry, okay, dr, dr. You hear that friction. And then also when you say throw, right? Throw, even though that friction is not so audible because the th sound is pretty low in frequency. But there is some friction, like thread. Okay, I mean like thread. Okay. So in this case, you will transcribe, for example, the word try as okay, try. As you can see, remember vowel length at the end of the word. As you know, the vowel sound at the end of the word gets longer. So here we have that fricative try. I will get this word also here for another rule that we're about to learn. Okay, so let's well, I'm not sure if you have any questions so far. If I say thread, for example, right? Is exactly the same rule. Okay, thread. Dry, the same rule also. I don't know if you can see it. Okay. There you go. Dry. Any doubts or questions? This is just a matter of application. You know, you have the rule, you apply it. If for example, it is just like coloring books, right? If they say, okay, numbers 2, color numbers 2 in, for example, I don't know, yellow. Number 3 is in white, or number 4, it's just the same, right? As soon as you see this, like TR, for example, immediately think, oh, you know, there is this fricative thing going on there.
Professor, just to make sure myself, there is no aspiration in try, right?
No, no
All right.
aspiration. Remember, it has to, and that's a good question. I think I forgot to mention that I just said syllable or word initially before a stressed vowel. So it has to have a vowel after the T or the P or the K. There must be a vowel. As soon as there is something else, like a cluster, like in this case, there's a cluster, the aspiration won't happen. Okay, good question. Okay, I'm going to explain. Now that I'm explaining this, I'm going to explain the other rule that is quite related to this, but it's a little different. The liquid sounds have another characteristic. Okay, they have this characteristic of being or change from voice to voiceless when they occur after a voiceless stop. Okay, remember, all the liquid sounds are voiced. Okay, however, they become voiceless when they occur after a voiceless stop. For some reason, the voiceless characteristic of the consonant that occurs before is passed towards the next sound, in this case the liquid. So the sound affected in this rule called devoicing, okay, devoicing rule, or let's say the voicing of U and okay, the symbol will be the U with this little circle, you know, below, or the R with this little circle below. Okay, and it happens only after voiceless stops. Okay, only after voiceless stops. What does that mean? It means that in try, this is a voiceless stop right here. Okay, this is a voiceless stop. Coincidentally, this same sound makes it fricative, so the R after T gets fricative, but it also gets devoiced. Okay, whereas here it does not get devoiced. Simply thread gets a fricative, dry gets a fricative, but it doesn't get the devoiced symbol. I can say many words with that cluster, devoicing cluster. I would say, for example, plot, okay, plot, plot. Okay, plot. I can say prize, or let's say prime. Okay, prime. I chose prime to remind you of a couple of things that go on here. Okay. Okay, prime. Can you see? Okay, so it gets devoiced. So the P is a voiceless stop. The O or the R get devoiced too. Okay, right here. With K also happens. So I say cry. Okay, cry. The gets devoiced. Any questions?
Yes, Professor, I understand the rule, but I don't know how to make the sounds to make a voice sound. Like how do you do it? Like, for instance, in the
Oh no,
aspiration, I know how to do it, but this one I don't understand.
oh, no, it's okay. Here it's something that as long as you make the k sound with some air, it will immediately take some of the voicing of the next liquid. So it is something natural. It's something like you don't do it consciously. It just happens. So
Como organic.
if you pronounce, for example, cry, okay, cry in a spectrogram, you will see that the voicing in the sound will get really short, almost nothing. So that is something that you only see in spectrograms. That's not something that you will see by yourself. It's something that spectrograms say, oh, you know what, the R here in this position gets devoiced, just like in these other two positions as well. Okay, just like the old sound, it's not the same saying, for example, a say plot, right? Plot. So the sound is not so audible, like the voicing of the sound is not so clear as when you say, for example, like, right? Like, plot. So there is something there before the little voicing of the starts. There is something there called devoicing. That's a phonological phenomenon that occurs. Even though,
Yeah,
as I said, that's not something that you are aware of. That's something that just happens.
yeah, Professor.
Professor,
That was the question that I was going to ask, because I mean, these are voiceless. Well, the T and the P are voiceless stops, so it feels like you are going to aspirate the sound, but you don't actually aspirate the sound. So it's a similar sound. Like the sound is coming with some restriction and with some, like, like the voicing in the
Yes,
pronunciation is closely
yes,
to like an aspiration.
exactly. It's similar. It's similar to the aspiration. However, um, they don't call it aspiration because it is not followed by a vowel sound, right? But then that explosion of air that comes with it affects the next consonant sound, but it does not affect any consonant sound. It just affects the liquid sounds. So it kind of like that obviously that air that comes out is voiceless, so it comes into the pronunciation of the liquid. So it takes out some of the voicing in those sounds also. So that's another rule. Remember, it's simply a matter of application. Don't worry about it. It's just practice and apply. The next rule. Don't worry, we're about to finish the rules. So don't worry about it. So
Before you continue, Professor, you said something about liquids. The liquid sounds are always voiced or voiceless?
not always voiced,
Okay.
except when they occur after a voiceless stop, because they get devoiced. Okay. The next rule, and this is a rule that you need to know. Okay. The next rule is called flap-er, which is the one that I showed you in the picture before. Okay. Flap or tap. Okay. You can also say tap rule, tap-er. Even though it is called flap-er, it doesn't have anything to do with the in spelling. Okay. The sounds affected are the t or the. Okay. And the environment for this affectation should be stress vowel, unstressed vowel. Okay, stress vowel, unstressed vowel, and right here in the middle, having the t or the. Okay? What happens then when you have this environment? When you have this environment, the t and the change the pronunciation or can change the pronunciation. Obviously, in this case, it's even though you have this is a complementary distribution because you know the environment. However, it is also free variation because not everybody pronounces that. So an example of that would be this, right? So we have city, right, or city. The first syllable is stressed, right? So we have this part of the environment covered already. First syllable stressed, followed by t, right here, followed by unstressed syllable, okay? So in this environment, the t will change the pronunciation into, okay, the representation of flap-er for now, okay, for us would be this one, okay, which is like a capital D, okay. This is a representation that we will be using for flap-er. So here, the t will change into the or the, which is the flap-er, and then this. Okay, what happens? And this is something really important. Obviously here, vowel length. Okay? But this is something really important. When the t changes into flap-er, the flap-er is voiced. So if you include the flap-er into a transcription, then you should also include the vowel length. So city, okay? City or city, right? Either one is okay. What happens? This rule is a little flexible with the liquid too. In this case, the liquid R, because in American English, even though the rule says that it has to be stressed vowel plus t and d plus unstressed vowel, American English has this flexibility in the environment, and they say that it could also be stress vowel, okay, plus R plus ta or the plus unstressed vowel. which accounts for party, okay? Because if you see party, I don't know if you can see it right here. I think so. If you see party, there is stress vowel, the t, and unstressed vowel, right? So that's the environment. However, in between, right, in the middle, there is an R. So this R does not change the environment right here. So you can in fact have this as a flap but not replacing the okay? The should be there. That's what I told you before. So the transcription and the pronunciation of this word should have the first syllable totally complete, par, and then the second syllable should have the flap plus the vowel. So say party. Don't say party, right? Party. No, party. You gotta practice that. Okay? Any questions? No? Okay. Well, the next rule you already know, we have talked about that, and that's a rule that you are very, very, very familiar with, which is the Chua rule. We already talked about that. I think a couple of classes ago. I'm just going to review, okay, the 4 representations of Chua. So we have this one, which is a regular Chua, but it's called unstressed position not followed by okay? This occurs in unstressed position only, not followed by Example, about, I don't know, can you see? Okay, this is unstressed position and it's not followed by So this one is the one that you should write. The other one is unstressed position also, but this time it's followed by okay? It's the R color Chua, right? So that's the one in the suffixes we have talked about here, like player, like writer, teacher, okay? By the way, let me talk about teacher for a while. Okay, here you have the aspiration. Okay? Something I want to say about teacher is remember that the CH should be pronounced like TCH. Alveopalatal, right? Not sh, but so I bring this up, or I bring this word, to the class now because we are all teachers, right? And teacher is one of the most common words that your students pronounce every single day. Every time they call you, like, oh, teacher, 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 right? I have a question, whatever. So teach them to pronounce the word teacher as it should be pronounced, because most students learn the word teacher, a teacher, as teacher. So they don't put the T here. Remember that the CH, it has to be, with the T in front. So always say teacher. Don't tell your students teacher or anything like that, right? Otherwise, they will grow up with that, and it's so hard to get rid of that after a couple of years. So you need to pronounce it properly and make your students pronounce it properly too.
Profe, they make the sound like pronouncing teacher.
Yeah, they make a sound like when they talk about the clothing, the piece of clothing, right? Like t-shirt.
Yeah, the teacher.
Say something like this, right? because this is sh, but the other one is ch. So they need to know how to pronounce that. Okay. So make emphasize a lot on that sound. Okay. The third is this one. Stressed position. Stressed position, not followed by Okay, that's the one in, for example, cup, okay, cup, but, judge, torch, right? So here we say, again, aspiration. Okay. It is not followed by and since it is a monosyllabic word, the stress is precisely on that syllable, so that's it, right? And the last is a stressed schwa followed by That's the one that we see in first for him, right? Or let's say birth also. Like happy birthday, right? Birth, first. First. Okay.
Profe, bird? No.
Bird, like
Bird?
the animal?
Yep.
Yes, also bird. Okay. So those are the 4 schwas that we have. Obviously, in broad transcription, all of them will be like this, right? Followed by whatever. But then when you start including the specific details in the sounds, then you will have to make some distinction between the different types of schwas. Okay. Okay. Let me see. I think I am almost done. Okay. Yes. The last, I'll say the last rule because the other one is also not so important. Let's talk about the not important first, which is unreleased. Unreleased, well, it's like unreleased stop. When you have a voiceless stop at the end of a word, you don't release it. So you say, for example, like, you don't say bet, right? You simply say bet. And some phoneticians make a distinction between the unreleased and the released t by putting that on top. Okay, it's like an apostrophe, like a little, like half square line there to just show that T is different from the aspirated one because this one is not released, whereas the aspirated is released. But that we're not going to see here, so don't worry about it. I'm just showing you that there is another symbol in phonology. In case you see it in some dictionaries, it means the T is not aspirated or non-released.
Professor, sorry. Maybe you have to move your board a little bit to the left.
Little tiny board. The little tiny board.
My little
yeah,
tiny...
because I can see like a light.
Oh,
and
sorry
I don't
about
see the symbol.
Yes, don't worry about it.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go. Sorry about it. Yes. Okay. Good observation. Okay, that's a good thing about having this movable board, right? I can move it anywhere. Okay, so that is not the last rule. That was something I wanted to add. The last rule is called, and for that rule, I will bring up again the word important. Okay, the last rule is syllabic consonant, or syllabic u and syllabic n. Okay, it affects only the u and the n, and this happens when you have a stressed syllable, or let's say unstressed syllable, basically, right? When you have an n and hold on a second. Sorry. There you go. Okay. This is a rule. I was trying to say it and writing at the same time. It was hard. Okay, this is a rule basically. So when you have a T, D, or N plus an unstressed vowel, okay, I will show it in an example so you can understand it. Plus an unstressed vowel followed by L or N, okay? What happens is that the unstressed vowel basically gets deleted. However, when you get, like in Spanish, for example, if you get a vowel sound deleted, you drop a syllable, because vowels, or the number of vowel sounds in Spanish, mean the number of syllables. However, in English, it's different. In English, that's what we call syllabic, because in English, even though the vowel sound is deleted, we still get a syllable. Let me give you an example, right? Okay, can I erase the rule?
Yes.
Okay, let me give you an example. Sorry, there you go. Okay, final, right? Here we have an N plus an unstressed vowel, because fine is the stressed syllable, and then the U. What happens here is that these two sounds, the N and the U, share the same place of articulation. So it is alveolar, both of them, right? So having the N pronounced, having, after the N pronounced, having to come back to this back position, pronouncing this this vowel, and then having to go again forward to pronounce again another alveolar sound is like too much work, right? For English speakers. Remember, they try to make everything easy. So in this case, instead of going back and forth in the articulation of these three sounds, what they simply do is, oh, I have already, this is alveolar, this is alveolar. I'm just gonna drop this, okay? And simply go from the N to the O. So instead of saying final, they would say fine, and then immediately, I already have my tip of the tongue in the alveolar ridge, right? Immediately open up the sides of the tongue and pronounce the O right next to it. So I say final, right? Final.
Profe.
Yes.
Profe Rodolfo, what about with mountain?
The same. It's exactly the same, because there you have
Mountain.
yes. In mountain, you also have the same thing. You say mountain. You don't say mountain or mountain,
Exactly,
right?
and that
Exactly.
is a very common mistake in Spanish speakers.
Exactly.
Not mountain, it's mountain.
So the transcription of this would be this. Okay? Obviously in square brackets. It will simply be this little thing below the n and the l, showing that before there was a vowel, but now the vowel was made into this. So final, the transcription would be this.
Final.
Obviously this will apply also. Fine, and here we simply add
The L.
this. Final. Mountain is exactly the same. We have the t, which is alveolar. We have an unstressed vowel here, and then we also have the n, which is alveolar. So it doesn't make any sense to go from alveolar back to the vowel and then go again into the alveolar. So the transcription of mountain would be like this. By the way, let me add the other so you can get used to them. Okay? Mountain. So in the word important that we saw before, it also happens. We already had some details in the word important. So we had this.
Excuse me, Professor.
And
one observation
yes.
about the word mountain. Okay, that depend also in the way as native speaker in Spanish are going to give the final pronunciation according to the combination at the end of the word. Because, for example, Nader say mountain, so he say mountain, but really in the English manner, so the final sound is still mountain, mountain. So in the British sound is like a mountain. You see? So that is going to depend according to the practice we give to the different sounds of the word, because each of us we are not going to pronounce the same at the same manner, because we are not English speaker, native English speaker. So the practice is what is going to make us try to pronounce in the correct way according to this study. Well, that's in my personal opinion.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, even in some dictionaries, you will find this. Okay, you will find the the chua sound here, just like important when I wrote it before, right? So I say important, right? I'm sorry. Let me add it. Yes. Well, basically, it depends on some speakers. Some speakers will pronounce a small, like a little, very short syllable right here, very short vowel. But in this case, well, most speakers tend to make this thing syllabic right here, like when they say button. Okay, button. Yes.
It's important with the colleague. I agree with you too, but it's important to take into account that American English is like I don't know. I hate to say the word more important, but we are more influenced by American English. As you can see, some apps or websites, they give you the options if you want the American or British pronunciation. But what I want to say is that our English is more influenced by American English.
Yeah. In that sense, I would also say, if you had to choose, obviously you can choose any type of English that you want. If you are more attracted by British English, then go for it and try it, to polish up the pronunciation as much as you want. The thing is that sometimes people here in Panama, I have heard a lot of people trying to make English pronunciation, but they just make British pronunciation, but they just make the pronunciation in some words, but then in some others they apply the American pronunciation. So if you go for the British pronunciation, you need to be consistent and you need to study how they pronounce it, because we have more access to American pronunciation. So it doesn't make any sense that sometimes you would say something like, oh, first this and that, and then the next time you say, oh, first this and that. So it doesn't make any sense to just jump back and forth from one pronunciation to the other. Another thing I wanted to add is that we are studying phonology to try to make our pronunciation more close to the native speakers, right? So the idea of knowing these type of things is to know where you can do it, how you can do it, and why you can do it. So next time you pronounce, for example, mountain, it will be easier for you to pronounce, because there are some people that have a lot of problems pronouncing this word because they don't know how to pronounce the last part of the word, which is in this case as simple as just having a syllabic nasal consonant, right? So the same happens with important, right? A lot of people having a lot of problems pronouncing the last syllable of important, while where you simply need to drop the vowel sound and make the syllabic. That's it. Important, right? So the TN together, right? Important. So that way it's easier. So the idea is to try to make our pronunciation as close as possible as that of a native speaker. That's why we study phonological rules. Native speakers, they don't study phonological rules because they already have the pronunciation, right? But when they study Spanish, they need to study these type of things and then see how some words change in some environments. Do you have any other questions? But yes, you're right. Some people pronounce a little vowel here, so that's why some dictionaries will show, for example, important, right, transcribed with a schwa there. Okay. Any questions? Well, just like with the N, it happens with the L as well, as in bottle, okay? Bottle, battle. So you don't say battle or little, right? You don't say little. Say,
Profe,
yes.
one last. Doll.
Yeah.
How can I say doll?
Do.
Doll, muñeca.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm glad that you came up with that example because the thing is, remember, right? Remember, this is part of the environment, but it's not the whole environment, right? This is part of the environment because if you remember, the other part of the environment is having a stressed syllable before, and then it happens in the unstressed syllable, right? So doll, it only has one syllable, which means this is stressed. So you don't.
Thank you. Thank you, Profe.
Sure, you're welcome. So in this case, you don't get that affectation. However, you get it if you say idle. Okay?
Idle.
Yeah, now you have it. Sorry. Idle. Okay, do you have any questions? No? Okay, well, the presentation has just a couple of more slides, but let me just show you, because at the end you have. Let me show you real quick, so you can You can go now. Let me show you. We will just go over something that we already know, okay? Even, here for some reason the symbol kind of like moved to the right, but it's just like an apostrophe. Also the omorganic nasal, that doesn't have any representation because it simply happens. It's the tendency to change the place of articulation of the nasal sound based on the place of articulation of the following sound, which is a consonant. And this is the top rule. This is the actual symbol used by the IPA alphabet, but we will be using this one because it's easier to get in computer, so it's way easier for you. Additional symbols, we already know this, right? This is a juncture that we saw last class, which is a short pause, a longer pause, and then the end of the utterance. Okay, this we will not see yet. We will see it next class, like how to state phonological rules. That's the topic for next class discussion. Okay, all these symbols will be next class. But then I added the weekly assignment. Okay, so the weekly assignment, as you can see, is only 5 sentences. Very easy for you. It's not gonna take so long. But you need to transcribe first in broad transcription slashes the 5 sentences. I mean, you transcribe it in slashes, and then below you will transcribe in square brackets. Okay, just take the same transcription that you have in slashes, put it in square brackets, but now take a look at sound by sound, how one sound affects the other, and then start adding the different rules or the different symbols I already told you today. Okay, so that is basically the assignment for next class. It's pretty short and easy. Okay, so try to do it. I will. Yes.
Profe Rodolfo, 5